Well, I'm Stephanie Barbary, and I'm the project manager for Project TED. Today I have with me Miss Jennifer McCleskey. She's going to tell us a little bit about her son Warren and their journey in dual diagnosis. So welcome, Jennifer. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Warren.
So Warren is 21. He's actually going to be 22 in about 2.5 weeks. He's diagnosed with mild intellectual disability, OCD, and autism.
So when did you first realize or suspect even that maybe there was something else going on, that wasn't related to his primary disability? So something maybe more mental health related.
So looking back, we should have seen with that 14-year-old that it was something different, but all of us didn't know better, and so we thought that was the autism. So it took about 1.5 to 2 years. It took till he was in 9th grade, so about 15, 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it was when he started developing a paranoia that I first said, oh wow, we have schizophrenia in the family. And so that was my first, oh no, what if this is a mental illness? So that's where I first started questioning it.
Okay.
And we'd always discussed OCD. When he was little, we would say, oh, this is so cute. It's like he has OCD. And so talking about it more, what we were seeing, we were realizing, okay, wait, we're seeing scary, repetitive behaviors. So it was a matter of over a few years realizing, here's what we're watching, and we're starting to realize that this is what this might be.
Okay. And then where did you go from there? I mean, did you talk with the school or have an outside psychologist look at him?
Autism was in there to the point that he'd gotten to where he was verbal, but he couldn't communicate with us well.
Okay, yeah.
So he was having behaviors after school. He would get in the car, he might be punching himself in the face. He might be slamming his head into the car windows. He was, with the paranoia, zombies had become a real thing for him. So, I had a teacher one day texting me, he's hiding under the table telling me he's hiding from zombies. So we were dealing with things like that, but he wasn't able to communicate to us what was in his head. So Burkhart Clinic, when they opened the Burkhart Clinic, I was able to start working with them to work on autism behaviors and help him. It took about 1 year probably to help him get to the point he could communicate verbally to us what was happening in his head. And so that's what finally led to him being able to get the information out to us that led to being able to realize that this was mental health. So a formal diagnosis actually was given when Workforce sent him. So Workforce is an organization that helps them transition from school into the adult life and to help them get into vocational fields. And they send them for testing when they first get with them. And so when they told me he'd have to go through testing, I said, okay, do me a favor. He's already had some counseling, and that's another part of the story, is he'd already had some counseling with a counselor that the Burkhart Center knew of, that was a new psychologist in town that specialized in autism and was a psychologist both. So he was able to work with him and gave him counseling for 4 months for the OCD to get it under control. And so I said, hey, let's refer to that one if you can, because he can give him his truest diagnosis. And so he was, I think, 17 for that diagnosis. So
you had received a lot of services in the community setting also. So, I mean, that's a huge benefit in itself. And, and I think what you speak to about, the transition services, moving from, child and adolescent mental health, the IEP services, going from an IEP into adulthood. I mean, I think that bridge in and of itself can be a hurdle for many parents and individuals with disabilities. And so I feel like that's almost like a protective factor that you had, and you're very involved in the PIN project too. And so you kind of knew, where to go to seek help. What would you suggest to other parents who may not be as knowledgeable about as you are, about other community resources, how they could turn, where they could turn to get help?
So other parents that have been through the same experiences. So if you can find the parents that where the kids have the same diagnoses, if possible, or similar. And then the other thing I thought of was just that a lot of times, so for the high school, they never got to see him without the OCD. So they didn't get to know who he was with just his autism. And so they had a hard time accepting, okay, what I'm trying to say, no, this is OCD, and I'm trying to get him back to this here. I think they probably had a hard time understanding what I was talking about. So it occurred to me, maybe if there could be something in the IEP that says this is what this child's baseline is without the mental health, might be helpful.
Okay, yeah, because you're right. I mean, at that point, all they would have known is him as he is at that point in time, not knowing his history, like you said, the baseline. And what we know as far as dual diagnosis, anything that deviates from that baseline, any changes that seem unusual for this particular individual, could indicate something else is going on. And so yes, I agree. I mean, I think that would be very difficult to figure out, which is the OCD type behaviors and which are related to more of his autism. And thinking about, a lot of those behaviors look a lot similar to one another, and so that would be very difficult if you didn't know that ahead of time. So, I applaud you also for reaching out and trying to educate the school system. In the high school, moving from one campus to another, the differences and what you've noticed as a parent.
And that was one of our other issues, was in the mental health community, that they looked at him as autism only. And so I was able to get the help crisis-wise, and I was able to get the help crisis-wise in the school. We had the most amazing middle school counselor that when he had his first suicidal thoughts, just helped us through that. And then I was able to get him a counselor who helped us through that first part out in the community. But once we were past the crisis, said, I don't know what to do past this, and sent us away. And so I think we were just stuck in a limbo there until that one psychologist finally came along a few years later. So,
and then he picked up the counseling at that point?
Yes.
So thankful that you had that middle school counselor, and it truly makes a huge difference whenever you have a connection with the school-based mental health professionals that could potentially lead you to these other outlets. Maybe they know of another mental health professional in the community that may be able to assist you and further in your journey beyond the school hours. So that's very exciting that you were able to get in touch with her, and then that led to meeting with the psychologist for the counseling as well.
Yeah. And so that's where I think he had so much help in the schools.
So welcome, Warren. I'm so glad you were able to visit with us today. Warren is going to tell us a little bit about his journey in dual diagnosis as an individual with disabilities. What was it like growing up with obsessive-compulsive disorder? Even as a teenager or as a kid?
As a kid, I can't remember because I actually have a major mental block.
Yeah.
But going up through middle school, I remember that especially when the zombie stuff hit, it was very tough day to day, especially with all the work and the homework that I was barely keeping up with.
Yeah. I imagine it was very overwhelming, not really knowing what was going on half the time while you were in the school setting. There's so many things running through your mind. It seems like it would be.
Not even just in the school setting, but in my own mind, trying to understand what was going on was very overwhelming.
Did you feel others understood you and what you were going through?
Most of them did, I felt like, but some were very not understanding.
So we think about maybe your teachers and maybe your peers, other students in school?
My peers, I don't think they understood very well.
Yeah.
But teachers seem to have a little more of a grasp on it, but not too much.
Okay. Could you remember a time whenever you had a teacher who did seem to understand, who seemed to get it, somebody that you could trust and you felt comfortable with?
There were actually two.
Yeah.
During middle school, there was one special ed teacher that came in, and he was really well versed in everything. He was able to help me a little bit with just the obsessive compulsive and through my day-to-day rituals.
How did he help you?
Just having more understanding.
Yeah.
Made me feel more comfortable.
Did he teach? And so you mentioned like how to deal with it. Did he teach you like some coping skills and strategies, like what to do like during the day whenever you felt uncomfortable?
He didn't have. He didn't have anything specific, but just him understanding, and then we'd play. Or when we did good on our homework and stuff, we'd get to go play games on the computers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of a that just getting to do that helped.
Well, it seems like him just being there helped.
Yeah, a lot.
That's wonderful.
And then during high school, the counselor who had come in was also really good because he helped me, or him also understanding helped.
Yeah.
So just a general understanding can help ease.
Do you think maybe, in their roles, were they able to help communicate for you what was going on with you? Like if they had this understanding, could they maybe communicate that to your other teachers who maybe didn't understand it all that well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt, especially like, if we felt uncomfortable sometimes in the class, we were able to go back to our class,
Oh, okay.
our special ed class, and do homework in there.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being in a setting where we're overwhelmed by everyone.
Mm-hmm. And was that helpful in itself, like being able to leave and go to a quieter environment or a quieter classroom?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
Especially during middle school.
Yeah, I bet. So I understand that you were also involved in 4-H. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Go. Tell us a little bit about that. You brought some awards with you, so I'm excited to hear the story behind these awards.
Oh man, where was this one even? I was 4-H Roundup.
Okay.
I started public speaking. Ah, man, what with even?
What was your speech about? Do you remember?
My one that I won the medal at in San Antonio, I think it was.
Okay.
I was doing OCD that year, and they happened to have a doctor there, and we're very they weren't happy with the situation where everyone was just memorizing their papers and not speaking what they really felt.
Mm-hmm.
So I happened to not memorize my paper and remembered, just kind of did it by ear.
Yeah. And you won?
And I won third place.
Wow. Okay. So you give us did you give your speech over OCD and?
Yes.
Okay.
And there happened to be a doctor there, and I think we got his card.
Oh wow. All right. And then what about this one in 2017? You got second place.
I don't remember that one.
No.
That might be whenever I have one of my mental blocks still.
No. And what do you mean by mental blocks? What do you mean by that?
When I was having a lot of trouble and there was just so much depression and just overwhelmed in general, my mind mentally blocked a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember any elementary. I remember bits of middle school, and then high school I remember perfectly.
Okay. So it seemed to get better in high school.
Yes.
Okay. And do you think maybe that was attributed to the help that you were receiving and getting for your OCD and depression?
Yeah, especially from counselors.
Yeah. So what about like now that you're an adult, like you had participated in the Burkhart Center, their transition academy. What's life been like after high school?
After high school, I went there for 2 years, and I made 4 or 5 friends while I was there. Because while I was growing up in from elementary to high school, I didn't actually have any friends. And so whenever I got there were some that I could actually connect with. But the teachers were nice, and the help we received was really good.
So that could be another protective factor also, thinking about the social connections that you made,
Right.
Very isolated, growing up in elementary, maybe even middle school into high school, and then after graduating, you had your people.
Right.
Yeah.
Then two of them left for a little while, but there's 2 still here in town.
Do you still talk to them?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, we're very connected.
I love that. And so do you have a job now?
Yes, I work over at the MCM Elegante,
Oh, okay.
a 4-star.
Yeah. It's a hotel, right? I think.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so thinking about other kids in this kind of situation with multiple diagnoses, what would you tell them? Like, what would you want them to know, having been through all of that yourself?
That it'll all hit a point of where it's the worst, but it'll get better from there. I mean, I even now I deal with some of the zombie stuff still, especially at night, but not as bad as I used to, and I can control it now.
How do you control it?
I have a zombie in my head called Bill, and so I have him in a cage, and it helps reduce the anxiety I feel.
Okay. Is he like your safe spot? Like, I mean, is that something that you think about to make yourself feel better?
He's basically the thing I can tell stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've developed your own coping skills, throughout your journey. I mean, you've collected some tools to
Right.
put in your own toolkit. So Bill has been the most effective for you?
For the zombie stuff, yes.
Okay. What about like the depression? Like, how do you cope with the depression?
Well, I mean, the depression, I actually had developed a emotional block too, which I just wouldn't let anyone see me emotional. And so my cousin recently had showed me Naruto, and that helped me get over that, actually. But stuff like the ways I worked through it was with like there's military motivation out there that you can find on YouTube, and so I'd listen to a lot of that, and they're really good songs, and seeing the actual forces do their work helped a lot for some reason.
So it seems like life is much better today than it was even just several years ago.
Oh yeah, even a year ago it's better.
And so we talked about what you would say to other kids. What would you say to your teachers or teachers that are working with individuals or students that have multiple disabilities? Like, how can they help other students?
Be patient and understand that they will probably get overwhelmed at some point, or they will like get depressed. Because I remember that I suddenly this came back to me. Suddenly remember that forget what it was specifically, but I remember crying over a lot of papers because I was just so overwhelmed. And so help them too, but don't be there as a block too. Yeah.
So it can be very overwhelming to have a lot of work due at once, or seemingly, what can be done pretty easily by everybody else can seem a lot to you.
Right, but there's but also not being a block, because there was a point where I could actually read.
Yeah.
And they would say that I would have to get around a table and listen, and that stressed me out a lot.
So really just listening to the student, I mean, that could go a long way, that in and of
Yes.
itself. Well, thank you, Ward. I really do appreciate you coming with us today and just talking a little bit about what life is like with an obsessive-compulsive disorder and living with dual diagnosis day in and day out. It takes a lot of courage to talk about it in public, but it sounds like you're a natural in advocating for your own needs, that's for sure.
For each help.
Yes, exactly. I think the awards show that.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.